Armando stepped out his unit.
Press
They
off.
told him that they believed his
Press
friend Rick was the
option
Night
skip.
Stalker, and they needed his help finding him. Armando told them that Rick wasn't the Night Stalker, and he wasn't going to help them.
What up, my niggas?
Falzon
My
grabbed
bad.
Armando, dragged him to his patrol car, and forced him into the back seat. He demanded Rick's last name, and Armando told him to fuck off. Falzon clenched his fist, and Armando said, "Oh, you want to fight?" and put his fist up. Falzon then punched him in the face, leaving a cut on his cheek. Armando said, "Is that all you got?" And as Falzon drew back to hit him again, Armando curled up and screamed, "Richard Ramirez! His name is Richard Ramirez!" The San Francisco task force passed the information to the LA team. Gail and Frank were able to pull files on 8 Richard Ramirez's that had been arrested in LA over the years. The fingerprint taken from the rearview mirror of the orange Toyota was then compared to the fingerprints of the men. One of them came back as a match to a 25-year-old transient. The team expected the suspect to have a long rap sheet and a violent history, but they found he had only been arrested for small crimes, like petty theft and grand theft auto. They printed out his booking photo and showed it to Jesse. He identified Richard as the man he knew as Rick. At that point, investigators knew that Richard Ramirez was the Night Stalker. Richard Ramirez's roots trace back to Mexico. His parents, Julian and Mercedes, were both from Carmago, Mexico. They met when they were 15 years old and started dating and got married in the 1940s. The couple then moved 300 miles north to the city of Ciudad Juarez. In 1950, Mercedes gave birth to Richard's oldest brother, Julian Jr. In 1951, the family moved to the United States and settled in El Paso, Texas. Julian Sr. landed a job at a smelting and refining company called Sarco and later worked for the Santa Fe Railroad Company. Mercedes worked at Tony Lama Boot Factory. After settling in, the couple continued having children. Richard's brother, Ignacio, came in 1951, then his brother Robert in 1953, then came his sister Rosario in 1955, and lastly came Richard in 1960. Richard grew up in an abusive home. Julian Sr. often beat Richard and his siblings, leaving them with cuts and bruises. On one occasion, he threatened to kill Richard and went to get his gun, but Ignacio had hidden it. Richard and his siblings each experienced physical and cognitive issues throughout their lives. It was later found that Sarco had essentially poisoned the area. The air was heavily polluted for 3 miles in all directions, and lead, arsenic, and zinc had contaminated the soil in the area. Also, Mercedes worked at the boot factory during her pregnancies. She worked 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, in a poorly ventilated area while handling chemicals and wearing no protective clothing, not even gloves. She always felt sick and dizzy. A doctor told her to take some time off work, but she couldn't because the
Hold
family
triangle
needed the
to
money.
enable menu narration.
Richard also experienced numerous head injuries while growing up. When he was 2 years old, he climbed onto a dresser to turn on the radio, but lost his balance, and the dresser fell on top of him, leaving him with a concussion and a large cut on his head that required stitches. When he was 5 years old, he was at a park when he walked in front of someone on a swing and was hit so hard that it knocked him unconscious. At 10 years old, he was hit while playing football and left with a concussion. Richard then started having seizures, and at age 12, he was diagnosed with epilepsy. He experienced frequent headaches, insomnia, anxiety, and depression. He was prescribed a medicine and took it for a few months, but stopped because he didn't like the side effects. He started smoking weed and said it helped his headaches and insomnia. During this time, Richard started hanging out with his cousin Miguel. Miguel was in the army and had just returned home from fighting in Vietnam. The two would smoke, and Miguel would tell Richard stories about his time overseas. But as time went on, the stories turned dark. Miguel started telling Richard about Vietnamese women he had assaulted and killed while serving. He even showed Richard pictures of the assaults and murders. It was even said that Miguel had a necklace of ears and brought back body parts in a suitcase. Miguel was diagnosed with schizophrenia and PTSD and was in and out of psychiatric facilities for years. At 14 years old, Richard fell from a moving train and was knocked unconscious. His seizures became more frequent and his headaches became more severe. The abuse at home continued, and to escape it, Richard would run away and spend the night in a nearby cemetery. It was quiet, and no one bothered him, so the cemetery became a safe place. That same year, Richard had his first run-in with the law after he was accused of attempted theft, but he was never charged. On May 4th, 1975, Miguel shot his wife Josefina after an argument. She was transported to the hospital, and Miguel was transported to jail. 11 days later, Josefina succumbed to her injuries. Miguel's mother called Julian Sr. and asked him to go to the couple's apartment to get some of Miguel's things. Julian agreed and took Richard with him. During an interview, Richard said once he walked into the apartment, he smelled a strange odor and saw particles in the air. He looked inside Josefina's purse and saw her ID.
Silence, you children of gods, and heed my tale of time's beginning. All was dark. There was no sand. There was no sea. No earth, nor sky. No grass, nor wind. Till fire met ice in the gasping void. And from this scream came the giant Ymir, first of all beings. Proud Ymir, cruelly killed, yet from whose bones and blood and brains the world was made. The world you walk and war upon.
There you are.
Eivor, here's a tune for you. Want to enliven your step.
Ah, there you are, my little drinker. Go. Is he okay? Yes, good. Come, Eva. Did you find the ring? Yes. Now for our little plan. You see us soaking, quiet as a wood mouse, and surprise him with our gift. You hold it out, like this. You look him in the eyes and you say, Styrbjörn King. May our clans be forever bonded in friendship and in love. Think you can do that for me? Good. Tonight, you may be the cord that unite our people. I'm so proud of you.